The second most fundamental component in React Native is text, and we use it for displaying text. So here we cannot place text just anywhere within JSX, as we do in web applications. We should always wrap our text with the text component. Now, this text component has a few interesting props. Let's look at the documentation for this component. So here on React Native website, under the API section, let's look at the documentation for the text component. So here we have a bunch of props. I'm going to talk about the most important ones. The first one is number of lines. When we set this, if our text is longer, it will get truncated. Let me show you. So back in VS Code, let's change this to a really long text. Now I want to make this even longer and see what happens. So now our text is wrapped. We have 2 lines, but if we set the number of lines to 1, our text will get truncated. Take a look. So we set the number of lines to 1. Now save. Take a look. So we have ... at the end of the first line. Very useful. We can also make this text act like a link using the onPress prop or event. So here we set onPress. We set this to a function. We can write a function inline here like this. We can pass an arrow function to a console.log saying text clicked. But this is useful for very small functions, one-liners. If you have a fair amount of logic, we don't want to throw all that logic here in the middle of our JSX. So we should implement it in a separate function. So before our return statement, we can define a function. By convention, we prefix the function name with handle. So we want to handle the onPress event. We call this function handle press. Now we set it to an arrow function. And this is where we do our console.log. Text pressed. Okay. Now we set onPress to handle press. Save the changes. Take a look. So I tap on this. Now, if you look at the terminal window, you see our log message. So we talked about the 2 essential props for the text component. Now, as you're building apps, get yourself used to reading this documentation for every component you come across. It helps you better understand the capabilities and limitations of that component. Next, we're going to talk about images.